Henyard says many of her supporters weren't allowed in the very packed room, a room full of Harris's supporters from an event being held in the same room before the caucus started.
We were all standing out there. No one was going in. It was past 6:30. We still could not get in. 6:40, we were still not going in.
While her constituents were outside freezing, she decided to freeze with them, not knowing that they were going to conclude the whole matter before we could get in the building.
Well, this situation in Thornton Township and also Dalton is heating up with Tiffany Henyard. One thing we haven't seen since I've been covering this is a very large portion of Tiffany Henyard supporters. Now, I've looked online. I haven't really seen too many YouTube channels, maybe on Facebook, Instagram. I haven't seen too many supporters of Miss Henyard, of Mayor Henyard, come out and be in full support of her. What I have saw is a lot of disgruntled residents on both sides, whether Thornton Township or Dalton, Illinois. I've saw these. Now, what we've got a chance to see now is residents of Thornton Township outside that was never let in. And they were very upset. They didn't feel like they had a chance to participate in the democratic process of the election, of her being allowed to be on the ballot in Thornton Township. And they were outside, as you can see, they were holding press conferences. And Tiffany Henyard, she's vowing now to really go after these people who participated in the process of keeping her off the ballot. She's not, I wouldn't say declaring war, but she's coming for everybody. And they're saying this.
Just days after she lost the backing of Thornton Township Democrats, embattled supervisor Tiffany Henyard is blasting the process that led to her replacement and promising to continue fighting to keep her job.
Put some respect on my name, because I am loved throughout Thornton Township, and that's why I keep going. That's why I have not ever gave up.
Tiffany Henyard, surrounded by about 25 supporters, holding her own rally today to try to salvage an elected position that pays her at least $220,000 a year.
This is our call for justice for voters' rights. Just so y'all understand, we are fighting for voters' rights, which was taken from us on December 3rd.
Tuesday night, Thornton Township Democratic Committeeman State Senator Napoleon Harris called a first-ever caucus at the Homewood Auditorium to pick the Democratic candidate for Township Supervisor, a post Henyard has held for the last 3 years. Usually, the Democratic candidate is chosen in a primary election. As Henyard shouted objections to the proceeding, a voice vote of township residents nominated Harris as the Democratic candidate, meaning Henyard will now only be able to run as a write-in candidate. She says her supporters were shut out of the caucus.
Hundreds of eligible voters, including seniors, local mayors, local aldermen, local state senators, and local state representatives, were locked out of the venue and forced to stand in freezing temperatures, unable to access the voting process in a timely and fair manner.
Henyard's tenure as township supervisor and simultaneously Dalton mayor has been marked by scandals and allegations of massive overspending, including thousands of dollars to erect billboards with her picture and an illegal donation of taxpayer dollars to a charity in Henyard's name. But today, her supporters, many of them hired by Henyard at the township or part of her political organization, say the voters should decide who gets slated.
Are they scared of you? They must be scared of Tiffany, because they won't even allow her to get on the ballot, because they know ain't no stopping us now. She will win.
As for how she plans to fight that caucus slating, Henyard has not said whether she plans to run as a write-in candidate or challenge it in the courts.
So you guys know that, I've done, like I said, a bunch of videos on Tiffany Henyard, and I've showcased and shown the people that object to her being in office. People in Thornton Township and also people in Dalton that really won her out of the seat. And we saw the battles that went on in the Dalton meetings that they would have, right? We saw her and Kiana Belcher and so many of the other trustees that she would be in battle with. Well, right now, what I'm going to show in this video is some of her supporters, because as I said, we haven't saw many of her supporters. I look online and I don't see them. But this is Michael Smith. He's a guy that a lot of that's come under fire and from a lot of different people. But yet and still, he's still supporting her, and he's saying this.
As it relates to being an objector, I am a duly qualified registered voter here in Thornton Township, a taxpayer, and as my objection says, I want to see that the process is followed legally. That's why I submitted objections. I submit objections every election cycle. This is not the first time, but to throw a punch at the supervisor, I find very critical or funny. Napoleon Harris as well has filed objections as well against these candidates and used people to do it on his behalf, as well as Christopher Clark, who's also a candidate for supervisor. I don't know who's feeding the media the information, but let's just put it all out there. They have put individuals out to challenge candidates. The supervisor at no point asked me to put forth a challenge. I did my due diligence. I requested every person that submitted their nomination papers for whatever office they were seeking. I got them. I did my due diligence in looking through each nomination paper, and I filed my objection. As stated before, I think we ought to stick to the facts of the whole matter. We have individuals that are running for office that are not qualified. Mr. Napoleon Harris is not a duly qualified resident in Thornton Township. I think those are some of the issues that I would ask the media to look into. He is a Flossmoor resident and have been for several years.
Thank you.
Then we get to Keith Price. Keith Price is a longtime supporter of Tiffany Henyard, and he's been very vocal in his support of Tiffany at Thornton Township meetings. He's also showed up to Dalton meetings. But in the Thornton Township meetings, he's been a no-nonsense, take no crap from anybody supporter of Tiffany Henyard. And I think he's the head manager or supervisor over the food pantry for her. He took to the podium and he says this.
Keith Price.
Good afternoon, everyone. As it relates to challenges, this is nothing new for me. I've been doing challenges in Illinois for many years. It's a part of the process. When you run for office, it tells you in the candidate's guide you should seek legal advice. So when people make major flaws on their paperwork, that's their mistake, not ours. If this was an NFL game, since we refer to Napoleon, if this was an NFL game and there was only 2 seconds left, you call a timeout, you're on the 50-yard line, but you got a kicker that can kick and win that game from you from that distance, that's what you do. It's part of the process. So I think there's a lot of more pressing issues than this process, especially at Thornton Township. We've had people put out misinformation on social media stating that they've called in to do it wasn't a phone poll, how was it worded? No, they called it something else, a consent to vote for insurance. We passed out information yesterday to all the news stations that showed the emails from the attorneys which specifically said that you cannot do it, it's illegal, you must be in person. None of the news stations aired that. And we gave the actual emails that came from the law offices that represent the township. So the misinformation is being put out. I think that's some of the things that we're trying to focus on. So any questions you have, I'm willing to answer.
So now we're getting word that Thornton Township may be on the verge of shutting down. And a lot of residents that are against Tiffany are saying this is Tiffany's way of getting revenge. Well, again, like I told you guys, there's going to be a lot of legal process that's going to go on because they feel as though that Mr. Harris And the residents of Thornton broke the law by going through the process in which they went to get Tiffany off of the ballot. Now they're saying Trustee Gonzalez and other trustees are saying that they didn't show up to these meetings because Tiffany now is trying to strong arm the township for not supporting her by doing this.
Developing tonight, yet another setback for Tiffany Henyard, just 2 days after a vote to keep the Thornton Township supervisor off the ballot next April.
And WGN's Jenna Barnes is live in South Holland tonight with the latest developments. Jenna.
Ray and Micah, on the heels of that political loss, Supervisor Tiffany Henyard is now warning that Thornton Township is on the verge of shutting down. Supervisor Tiffany Henyard is warning of a new crisis facing Thornton Township. It could shut down because its insurance policy expired this week.
And if the lawyers advise me come tomorrow, we will be shutting down. So that's what I'm waiting on. I'm waiting on them to advise us of our next steps because they said no insurance, we cannot operate.
She issued the warning at another township board meeting where there was no quorum to vote on insurance payment because trustees Chris Gonzalez and Carmen Carlisle didn't show up. Henyard places the blame on them.
It's like, come on, guys. When y'all gonna see who the problem is? Because it's not us.
During a news conference, we followed up asking for details about the shutdown and who it could impact. Henyard wouldn't tell us.
Well, that's something exclusively for Channel 7.
But one of those absent trustees did shed light on the potential for a shutdown.
People will definitely be affected. Because you would probably look at, possibly like say our bus is not running. But like I said, obviously our goal is to not even get there.
Gonzalez says he and Carlisle aren't attending the meetings because doing so would allow Henyard to appoint a trustee to the board, and that would give her control of spending.
The way I look at it is kind of a created emergency, and unfortunately she's playing games with the safety of people coming into the township itself.
Henyard's vowing she'll still be on the ballot for supervisor in April, despite a resounding defeat in the township's Democratic caucus Tuesday. State Senator and Township Democratic Party committeeman Napoleon Harris called the caucus and installed himself at the top of the ticket, winning with a simple and loud voice vote.
It's election rigging at its finest.
Henyard and her allies plan to take the result to court.
There were people on the inside that was not from Thornton Township. There was children on the inside yelling and voting.
And that was the biggest voter suppression I've ever seen.
Attorney tonight calling those claims lies. He tells me he has the sign-in sheets to prove otherwise. As for the insurance crisis, Gonzalez says they're hoping to reach a resolution to that early next week.
So trustees Carmen Carlisle and Gonzalez didn't show up. And you guys have heard me say that I don't trust trustee Gonzalez at all. I don't believe that Tiffany was qualified in the first place, and why would he be the person to be the last vote to put her in? I think that they need to do a thorough investigation to find out how long him and Trustee Gonzalez and Miss Henyard actually knew each other. And why was she put there in the first place? We know that she had experience being a trustee, but as far as being experienced and taking the role on the supervisor to govern over the 200,000 residents of the township, we can clearly see that she didn't have the experience. So why did you guys didn't want to go out to a greater vote for the people that have a voice? Why did you nominate her to be there in the first place? There needs to be a thorough investigation because I smell fish in the water. There was other things going on at play as to how she got there. And when she got in office, we already know that she said the former supervisor, Zuccarelli, was stealing money for years and they turned a blind eye or it went on deaf ears. So there was already a lot of corruption that was brought in there, and she was brought in there on corruption pretenses. And when she didn't, this is what I believe, and when she didn't play ball or go along, then they were sought to get her out of there, because the question that's not being answered, why was she there in the first place? If you guys fought to get her out in Dalton the minute she got in a couple years back, why was she there in the first place? Why did you vote for her in the first place? When it was obvious that you guys, not George, you guys knew that she wasn't qualified. Because when she got in, they was already putting in injunctions to get her out right away. So there's a lot of things that stinks in Dalton and also in Thornton Township, because we saw what went on with then Mayor Mr. Rogers and the allegations that was being put out on him and the going back and forth between him and was it trustee? His name is escaping me right now. But the commercials and the ads and things that they were putting out on each other. So there was already chaos. We saw the way Tiffany Henyard would have conversations and meetings with the former mayor, how belligerent and disrespectful she would be, right? We saw these things. So why was she there in the first place? Huh? Who sought to benefit from Tiffany Henyard being put in those positions? And that's where the investigation needs to be led. Because if you want to stop the bleeding in these townships and you want to get the proper black people there that can do the job, you have to get those black people out from behind the scenes that's orchestrating all of this. That's the cause of all of this. Because Tiffany Henyard didn't do this alone. So who are the people that was behind getting Tiffany Henyard in this position, and what did they stand to gain from it? That's what you have to do if you want the proper democratic process to take part or do its job. That's all I want to. That's all I've been saying since I've been covering this story. But I'm gonna cut it short there. If you made it this far in the video, hit that like button, subscribe to Street Media TV, and leave your comments in the comment section. Let me know what you guys think. And remember, I love y'all. Till the next time, peace.